Well, so today, Atlantis is often conceived as a very peaceful, kind of a utopian society, like the ideal society. But, according to Plato, who was the one who created Atlantis in the first place, and told of it in his tales, what was it called? The Timaeus and Critias. He described it as actually being kind of a corrupt society, corrupted by their wealth, and they were hell bent on world domination, and that's the reason that the gods kind of got pissed off at them and decided to destroy the continent. And but anyway, so yeah, we're going to be talking about Atlantis today, so we'll get right to that. Conspiracy theories, the paranormal, UFOs, aliens, and all things strange and unusual. This is Black Lotus. So it's thought ever since Plato talked about or wrote about Atlantis in his tales. We have to remember that Plato wasn't so much an historian as much as he was just a philosopher.
Right.
And so he told tales like Critias that were kind of cautionary tales about society. And so it's thought that ever since he wrote about this, people have been just into it, and they believe that it really existed. But anyway, so yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, first of all, Plato wrote this, like you said, as a fable. And when people started to believe in it, they started looking into it to figure out where this place could be.
Uh-huh.
Now, the problem with that is it supposedly existed 9,000 years before he did, which was 360 BC.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
They're looking for basically a whole continent that's disappeared, that's over 10,000, almost 10,000 years or over 10,000 years old.
Right, exactly.
I think that would make it a little hard to do.
So what was Atlantis? I mean, we can say that it was a lost continent that Plato wrote about, but what exactly was it? What do people speculate that it was?
Well, like you said, I think a lot of people speculate it was a utopia that just went awry. And I think that's going to happen over and over again in society anyway.
Absolutely.
Even though places don't necessarily disappear off the face of the map like this one supposedly did, there are very many places out there that whole cultures have just disappeared.
Oh, right. And in fact, I heard a while back that geologists are actually kind of surprised that the Hawaiian Islands still exist because they're relatively small, and they face things like tsunamis and that kind of thing a lot. You remember back in what was it, 2004? I think it was, when that huge tsunami hit the Indian coastline. And I mean, do you remember video footage of that on the news?
It was amazing.
Incredible, And had that been a smaller island, it would have been wiped out, just completely wiped out. So it's supposed to exist in the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
But it's also thought that it was in the Mediterranean Sea. It's thought that it was in the Atlantic, but closer to the Bimini Islands. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. It's also thought that it could be in the Sahara Desert, which is kind of baffling to me, actually. But you told me that it may also be actually Antarctica.
Right.
Yeah. Well, but anyway, so the Atlantic Ocean is named after Atlas.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It's like Atlas is the Atlas is one of the pairs of the 5 twins of Evenor. Okay. And he was given a kingdom to run, which was Atlantis, and the Atlantic Ocean is named after him. So he's actually a person that the ocean was named after. So why would we think it's other places?
Right. Well, and again, it's said that it's in different places, and even the continent of Lemuria or Mu is supposed to be in different places. One says that it's in the Pacific Ocean, that it was part of the Pacific Fire Islands, around Hawaii. And other theories say that it was in the Atlantic Ocean. Other theories say that it was in the Indian Ocean. So I mean, nobody can really seem to come to a conclusion on that.
Well, everybody's interpreting what Plato said differently, I think, too. A lot of people are saying the translation's wrong. There's a lot of people who say it wasn't supposed to be 9,000 years, it was supposed to be 900 years, which would mark it in a different place.
Right, exactly.
During the time period.
Yeah,
that's one of those things I think we'll never know what Plato actually meant until we find it, if it's there.
Yeah. Well, one of the places, like I said, it's thought to be actually based on the tsunami that hit Crete in the Mediterranean Sea near Greece, and that the Atlantians, as it were actually the Minoans there, and because they were an advanced society, and they too were kind of hell bent on destruction, and they were corrupt by wealth, and they were trying to take over the world, kind of thing, and so and then a tsunami. Now this is a factual thing. A tsunami came along and wiped it out. I mean, and it was caused by a volcano that erupted in, I believe the island is called Thera.
Yes.
Near in the Mediterranean Sea as well. But anyway, so the tsunami came along and just wiped it out, and just like it did off the coast of India in 2004. I mean, the tsunami just took the whole thing out, and so. But the thing is that they say that he wouldn't have based it on that, because what he actually says in his tales is that it is an island continent, and so if that's the case, Crete would be too small to be Atlantis. You know what I mean? So
yeah, they were saying it was the size of Asia or bigger.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it may be Crete that he based it on, but I don't know. I tend to doubt it. But then let's talk about the Bimini Islands.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. The funny thing about this is that I've noticed that people become so obsessed with this that they have often lost their fortunes. Millionaires become obsessed with this thing and sink all their money into it, pardon the pun. And then they end up being paupers because of this. And sometimes people have actually lost their lives seeking this thing out. And one of those instances happened with the Bimini Islands, where a guy was, I guess, attacked by a shark.
Looking at the Bimini Road?
Looking at the Bimini Road. Now, the Bimini Road it's a streak of slabs.
Slabs is a good way to put it. Yeah.
And they're all basically the same shape. They're square, and they're all connected to each other. And it looks, at first glance, it looks like a pathway.
It does.
It looks like a road. But it's a pretty amazing thing. And people say, well, nature doesn't do that.
Well, nature does some weird stuff.
But nature does do some weird stuff, and it's been proven now that the Bimini Road is actually a natural formation. But you look at it, and to the untrained eye, it looks like a road.
Well, I don't know how they could say they prove that it's a natural formation. I think there's always the possibility of anything.
Well, sure, there's always possibility, but the fact is that these things do exist. There's one off of the coast of Florida, and it looks just like the Bimini Road. And what it is, it's beach rock that has been eroded, and the funny thing about that is that though at the Bimini Road, what makes it a little different is that there are rocks underneath a few of these slabs, and what they had originally thought was that it was a way to level out the road. But what has actually happened is, as time has gone on, the beach rock has moved via the tides, and it's actually moved this beach rock onto other rocks. And so,
And people say they can't happen, but if you ever seen the videos of those stones that move by themselves, I forget where they are.
yeah, in fact, I want to do a show on that.
Yeah,
one day.
those are really interesting, but they've proven how it's been done, and it's basically the same thing.
Have they proven it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
It's basically the same concept, water moving it and
Really?
dew moving.
Really? Huh.
So very interesting. I think of all the places that it could be, that was one of the places that I went, ooh, that does look promising. It looks almost like a runway or a big field of rock.
Yeah.
What would you call it? A market area or something.
One of the places they speculate that it could be is off the coast of Africa. And the reason for that is it wasn't too awfully long ago that a user was looking through using Google Earth, that app, and
Right.
so he but he noticed a formation under the water off the coast of Africa. And if you take a look at that thing, it's really compelling because it looks very structured, but who knows what it is really. But it's huge. They're saying it's about the size of whales.
Well, what I noticed too is it was like a square inside of a square inside of a square. Now, when you're talking about Plato's Atlantis, it is supposedly a ring of buildings around a ring of buildings around a ring of
Right,
buildings.
concentric circles.
Right.
Yeah.
With bridges. And the reason I say rings and not circles, because circles and rings can be different. You can do a ring around something and not necessarily make it a circle. So that's why they're saying that even though these are square, they could possibly still fit into the same realm.
I think that's one of the more compelling images that I've seen of this thing.
Well, I have to say too, the same place, the Eye of the Sahara Desert. We were talking about that a minute ago, and that's the same thing. It looks almost like a sinkhole, and there's consecutive rings
Right.
going in, and they're not sure what has caused it or how it's becoming to be. And if you look at it, it really does fit the description he would have given.
I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't been filled in yet with the dunes there. I mean, that's kind of strange.
It's very strange that it happens to be there to begin with.
To begin with, exactly.
And the colors of it are very odd for the desert. It doesn't.
yeah.
It looks out of place.
completely out of place.
So that to me was one of the ones that was like, yeah, even though it's in the middle of the desert, why not? I mean, we see how continents have moved. So things could, like we said in the Atlantic, or excuse me, the Antarctic, somebody have said that it could be the Antarctic that had gotten loosened from the plates and kind of shoved over.
Yeah, I don't know if it would have gone from the Atlantic where they say it was all the way down there. I don't.
I find that one hard to believe too, but it's still a theory out there.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is a lot of skeptics say that Atlantis couldn't possibly exist because the tectonic plates haven't moved enough to create something that would have caused a huge island continent like that to have sunk. And again, it's not to say that islands don't disappear. They do, but they're smaller islands.
Right.
And a continent island like Atlantis, they say it just couldn't possibly have sunk because the tectonic plates really haven't moved enough. Now, maybe way back when, like millions of years ago, when the Earth was still forming, I'm sure continents rose and sank and whatever all the time, but certainly before the human race ever crawled out of the sea. So since we've been around, I don't think there would have been a continent around with civilization on it that could have sunk.
Right.
So
I'm
just not a big believer in the whole Atlantis thing. I'm not a complete skeptic. I like you said, anything's possible. But this just doesn't.
Well,
pardon the pun, but isn't a whole lot of water with me.
I have to agree with you in that aspect. To me, he was telling a fable.
Mm-hmm.
He was telling a story to teach people things. He was being his normal self.
Yeah, right.
Just teaching lessons. I don't think he was trying to write history.
Yeah, no. he was trying to write a fictional tale, as people do, and it was a cautionary tale. And Atlantis was basically just a plot device to do that, I think. Yeah, so... Yeah.
Well, and we were talking about it's not the only one that's the only lost city. Mm-hmm. There's two other ones that we know of. What did you say, Mu and
Lemuria?
Yeah.
Which I thought that they were the same thing, but evidently not.
Yeah, it seems like they're two different things. But again, you go look this stuff up, and you get contradictory information on every different page you look at.
Right.
With Lemuria, I was told it was in the Atlantic Ocean, and we were talking, from one of the articles I was reading that I thought was really interesting, and then you had said that it was in the Pacific Ocean.
Pacific, right.
So we've both...
Like near Hawaii, yeah.
Right. And mine was near the Mediterranean Sea, I believe.
Okay.
But there are many, many places that have sunk, though, that are big enough that were millions of years ago, like you said.
Right.
There was one place that was 20 million years old that actually disappeared because of the rise of the sea.
Sure, yeah. And I can see that, yeah.
They've actually found, seeds and stuff and dated this back to that time period that at one point it was above sea level.
Right.
So,
but see, Atlantis, though, and Lemuria is supposed to be bigger than Atlantis.
Right.
So it's supposed to be the size of like the United States, or even Africa, and so I again, while the Earth was forming, I could see something like that rising and sinking and that kind of thing. But since the dawn of civilization, I don't think that we have had tectonic movement that would be able to create that.
That much of a change. Well, maybe now with global warming, we will see more of that.
I wonder, honestly. I mean, they say that when the polar ice caps melt, it's gonna, it'll totally reshape. I saw a map once where it was speculative map that showed the reshaping of the United States, and how most of the eastern seaboard is gone. Most of the western seaboard is gone from the Pacific. Florida is just no longer. It's another Atlantis. It's gone. And I can see with the sea levels rising that is entirely possible.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's happened so many times before where things have disappeared. Not maybe continents, but cities. Like they just in Alexandria, Egypt, they just discovered Cleopatra's whole area where she committed suicide to avoid capture and stuff.
Really?
And
I didn't know that.
There's actually the notable structures also include Mark Antony Sanctuary that they were building that they never finished. And when they uncovered all this and all the pottery and jewelry and stuff, they're leaving a lot of it as is, and they're actually planning on making it an underwater museum for people to go visit.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and I thought
How
that was
cool
pretty
is
darn
that?
cool.
Yeah.
So, but so places have disappeared that we know of.
Oh, yeah.
But a continent, I think that's a little different.
Yeah. I mean,
unless the UFO took it.
A tsunami is horribly dangerous, but it can only do so much damage at this point, I think. I mean, it'll wipe out a city or something like that. But
Right.
but yeah, not a continent. But anyway, Ralph told me that there is an organization out there, kind of like MUFON or the BFRO for the Bigfoot one.
Right.
It's an organization that collects data, and I suppose you can probably upload your own experiences with it. But it's dedicated to Atlantis.
Right.
And
They're gathering information, anything they can figure out about Atlantis.
Mm-hmm. And anyway, if you want to check that out, and I highly encourage you to do so, it's called Atlantipedia. That's ALANTIPEDIA .ie, not .com, .ie. So Atlantipedia.ie. Check it out, because I mean, you'll find if you're interested in the Atlantis theory, you're gonna find out a lot more information there than we could possibly give you in one episode. So,
and they're growing rapidly. They just opened the site not too long ago, and there's lots of information that I've noticed that has been coming in pretty quickly. So they're constantly improving it and adding stuff to it.
I see in your notes, just as an aside, I see in your notes that you have something about Port Royal in Jamaica. What is that about?
that was just I wanted to talk about them in 1692. There was a whole place wiped out by an earthquake there.
Was there?
And that was where all the prostitutes and the pirates are kept all.
So
stuff.
it was part of the island that was
Correct.
wiped out. Okay.
Correct. And
I was gonna say 'cause it's
it
still
ended
there.
up 40 feet below the ocean.
Oh wow, really that far? Wow.
And the rest of it, like you said, is okay right now. But yeah, part of it's actually 40 feet below the ocean that used to be there.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Huh. The reason I bring that up is because I happen to notice out of my corner of my eye I saw Port Royal, Jamaica, and I'm really into the golden age of piracy, and so I was like, what happened there?
They ended up taking it out about 2,000 people.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's like 2,000 people could be a whole civilization. Way
Well,
back
absolutely, no doubt.
So, very interesting stuff to go and see all and look at. But unfortunately, I have to agree with you. I think it's a much of
More of a tale than
fable,
a legend, a myth, But again, though, I think that all myths and legends are based on, no matter how minute, some semblance of truth. So again, that's why I think it's entirely possible that Plato, wanting to use this plot device to show that people shouldn't be greedy and they shouldn't be corrupt, he used the history of Crete and the Minoans for that tale. I think to me that seems to be the most plausible explanation. But again, people, like I said, people have lost fortunes and their lives seeking this damn thing.
Well, I think of Atlantis now, and when you think of Atlantis, I picture like behind us a sunken city with mermaids, and King Neptune is ruling it, and who knows, the Little Mermaid could be down there somewhere,
right?
I don't picture a city that's sunken.
And I wonder why it is that we have gone from the fact that it was a corrupt society, and again hell-bent on world domination, to this idea that it's this foo-foo-la-la utopian society, that it was the perfect society, when it obviously according to Plato it certainly was not.
Because we all need that utopia in our lives. We all need that hope that there could be at one point.
Yeah. It's a
never happen, but
nice idea, but yeah, I don't think human beings are meant to live in a utopian society. I don't think. I'd like to think that eventually we could become like society is portrayed in Star Trek, where we all get along pretty much, But I don't think we're ever going to get there. I really don't. Call me a cynic or pessimist, whatever you want to call me, but I just don't see it. It's not in human nature.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it's being a pessimist. It's just nature in general, and not even human nature, all nature. Yeah. Everything keeps their territory and protects their territory.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there alone causes friction, which
and it's been the way since the dawn of man. We've always been very tribal and protective of our own, and there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. But when it comes down to like things like racism, that's a problem. And hopefully we'll get past racism eventually, but I don't think that we're ever going to get to the point where we're like all buddies, So
not going to happen.
But anyway, you want to wrap it up?
Sounds good.
All right. So on Tuesday we have kind of a special little episode we're doing. Ralph and I have both had UFO experiences. We've both had contact to different degrees. And I just recently found out that a good buddy of mine that I've known for years, I just discovered that he has had, he witnessed a UFO. And anyway, we're going to be talking to him, and he's going to sit down with us. So first interview we've done in a while, I think. Since Summer Rae, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
And this will be an interesting one, I think.
Yeah. Well, they're all interesting, but
that's true.
So we're going to do that on Tuesday, and then, but speaking of the UFO thing, this is something that Ralph and I have been talking about doing for a long time. We wanted to do an episode on our own personal experiences with alien contact or UFOs. And so we're going to be talking about that later on in the week, on maybe Saturday, I guess. Yeah. So that should be a pretty interesting show, because we have some pretty interesting stories to tell.
It's one of those things, like you always say, until you see it with your own eyes.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Listen and at least make your own opinion and stuff, and let us know what you think. But you don't have to convince us of anything.
Yeah, no doubt. Anyway, so until Tuesday, keep thinking and question everything. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe and click that little bell so you can get a reminder every time we upload a new episode.